Thanks for staying with us. You are here with the I Am Real Estate Show, sponsored by the Johnson Smith team at Indy Realty.
And we just got word from the person behind the glass window here that we never introduced Danielle. Oh. And her voice just kind of appeared out of nowhere. So we have Danielle Johnson here.
Hello.
Who is our newest team member. And she's going to be a frequent guest host on the show. So that's whose voice you heard. And
you're stuck with me.
I'll just do a shameless plug here. She does a podcast as well called Hopebound with Danielle. And if you're interested in podcasts, it's for women who are struggling with trauma, loss, or domestic violence. So we highly recommend you look her up. That's Hopebound with Danielle.
Thank you.
Sweet. Love it.
So we were going to talk about, see if I get this right, the 2 temptations inspectors need to avoid.
Wow, that's good. I would say
you wrote it. It should be good.
Yeah, it's almost like a t-ball slow pitch right over the plate.
Wow.
For me, I've thought about this a lot. There's 2 voices that I would say that are common that will tempt every home inspector, no matter where they're from. The voice of greed and the voice of fear. So the voice of greed basically says, go easy, inspect with a light pencil. Let's not get it branded as a deal killer. Let's just, it's not that big a deal. We'll just kind of use soft language and kind of let things slide. That inspector is really primarily focused on protecting future referral business and kind of leaning toward the realtor community. The voice of fear goes the other direction. It says, when in doubt, call it out. Everyone's going to sue you 6 ways from Sunday if you don't catch everything. You don't want to miss a thing. And so they are more focused on liability control. Both temptations are a mistake because it takes your eye off the ball of the evidence and of protecting the first and highest person in the room, which is the client.
Gotcha.
So what does the evidence say? What is it not? Sometimes evidence doesn't speak. It needs a level-headed, objective interpreter.
Right.
And so you gotta bring your intellectual tools to bear on what the evidence is actually saying, and be completely indifferent to whether or not you're going to scare anybody. It just doesn't matter. Can you say things in soft language? Sure, but you can't pull punches and just overlook evidence for the sake of not scaring anybody. So as soon as an inspector starts thinking about what's the outcome of this conversation, they've already missed. So I think that humor is a really healthy anesthetic.
Yeah.
So use humor to keep it lighthearted, be engaging in the evidence, but at the same time, you don't want to be so serious that you can't have fun.
Right.
But you want to be so goofy that people can't take you seriously. So look at what it is.
Nailed it.
Speak to the evidence, answer questions. And then don't speculate about people's motives. Don't speculate about anything. Just, stick to the facts. Just like what they said in Friday from Dragnet. Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts.
I almost want to give you like a real life scenario here and just see how you're going to handle this.
Bring it in.
Okay, so let's say that the floor is sagging. Make that funny.
Well... The foundation's tired. It needs to go to bed. Depending on what kind of sag we're talking about. If we're talking like a 1920s home where it's sagging on the outer edges, like a pier and post foundation, probably have a significant structural problem that may be it may be impractical to correct without massive releveling of the foundation. If we're talking about a sagging spot because lack of support, like something got wet, there's decay to a wood subfloor. What is it? So the question is, why is it sagging? Where is it sagging? How big of a deal is it? Is it a leaking floor flange below a toilet and we need to cut out a section of the floor and replace it? So the big question is, what's causing it? And then get to that. And then it is what it is.
Right.
Sometimes sometimes it's a frowny face, Mr. Yuck sticker. It's like, I'm sorry, but this is what we found.
Right. So you kind of, sometimes you're the bearer of bad news, but really
Yeah.
no news is good or bad. It's really becomes a price issue at that point because you want to pay a fair price for the condition of the house.
Right.
And if it's reasonable, the buyer will buy the house. If it's reasonable, the seller will repair the house.
Yeah, and every buyer has to have the opportunity to address the facts and decide for themselves, is this too much repair work for me to deal with?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So, I mean, everything's fixable. It's just going to cost a lot or it's not.
I would like to turn back to that story, story Sandra just brought up. The reason why I bring it up is that people have to realize that if you see that sinking foundation, your report not going to say, hey, I think this, I think that. Your report's going to say, hey, this is what I found. You need to contact a certain person to find out what. Your report should say that consistently.
Right. Yeah, yes, because we can't pretend to be engineers if we're not licensed engineers.
Okay.
But we can speak to a situation having, every general home inspector can somewhat fake it. Like if you had to fake it and be an engineer on TV, and like we're going to do an episode of The Walking Dead, and I'm going to be the engineer, I could probably fake it convincingly.
Yeah.
We have to think about load paths. We got to think about structural integrity. What's a load bearing wall? What's not? But at the end of the day, if something looks like it's really bad news, you gotta throw it to a specialist and get a full, confident prognosis.
I will say from experience, it would be really nice to know when the floor is going to break underneath you so that you're not walking through the house having the floor break. Because that has happened to me before. This house I talked about earlier.
That's how they
My
discovered
foot went right through the floor.
That is how they discovered the plates and stuff underneath the foundation.
Or seeing a toilet halfway through the floor into the crawl space. It's like, that floor flange has been leaking for a while.
When you're looking at a house, there are so many things that you're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so give us a number. What do you think? How many items are you looking at on that house?
Man, it's in the hundreds. It's in the hundreds. Now you could break down the table of contents, like at Arizona Standards of Practice, to being, over 100 items. But man, in my experience, like the veteran home inspectors, they're not stopping at the Arizona Standards of Practice.
Right.
They're going beyond that.
Right.
They're doing things that are not required to do because they want to be good at their job.
Right.
They're gonna I want to say this in a way that any inspector who ever hears this episode is going to hear and see themselves in what I'm saying. Every home inspector worth their salt goes beyond the standards. It's just a matter of how. So they're going to go through their list of items, whether it's they're inspecting with a tablet and a camera, or if they're taking video, or whatever they're doing. It's observe, document, explain. So FIR, findings, implications, recommendations. Every good inspection report should have all three. What did you see? What does it mean? What do you do?
And that is required.
Yeah. FIR.
That is required.
What did you say are the normal tools of the trade for an inspector? I mean, I know you got you have the infrared, but is it a ladder? What are the tools of the trade for you
between
guys?
a ladder, a flashlight in your brain, and a screwdriver, that's the bare minimum. But yeah, we're probably going to run out of time before I can run through that list.
Talk about it. Yeah, we're here with Michael Oakland, who is with Horizon Inspections. Thank you for being with the show. We're going to be back on the other side to talk a little bit more about inspections with Michael, Sandra, and Danielle.